Hello, hello. Welcome back to Tired Old Queen at the Movies. Steve's got a great movie for us this week. Don't forget about the great movie merch below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and click that bell if you want to know each time a new video comes out. Now let's go see the Tired Old Queen at the Movies, Steve Hayes.
Ha! Look who's here! It's been a long time. Glad to see you, buddy. Come on in. Oh, Johnny, you know what? We hadn't done a Tyrone Power or a swashbuckler in ages, so I decided to do my very favorite Tyrone Power swashbuckler from 1941, John Cromwell's Son of Fury, starring Tyrone Power, Gene Tierney, George Sanders, Francis Farmer, and Elsa Lanchester. This movie was gloriously shot by the best cinematographer at 20th Century Fox, Arthur Miller. Tyrone Power plays a man named Benjamin Blake, and he is an heir to a huge fortune.
Because he is the rightful heir to Breatham.
Nonsense. Now, when he's young, he's played by Roddy McDowall, and his guardian is his uncle, George Sanders, evil uncle.
Well spoken.
Who wants to get all of the fortune and claims that he was illegitimate, so he's not entitled to it.
I will take nothing that is not mine.
And tosses him out. So Tyrone, he's been horribly treated. Tyrone falls in love with this wonderful, elegant woman, Francis Farmer. They're going to be, engaged, and they're going to be married and everything, but he has to leave. He gets into trouble and he has to leave home.
Apparently I've failed. You've broken in here and threatened me, your master, with assault.
The next rest of the movie is him traveling all over the world and then coming back to England to regain his fortune. In his travels, he ends up in Polynesia and he meets Gene Tierney.
Tirana? Where did you come from?
And she's gloriously gorgeous, and they fall in love. He vows that he's going to come back for her. And he has to go back around, and by this time Francis Farmer has thrown him over, but now she wants him back, and that's a whole mess. And he gets to confront his uncle and go for the final duel and go for everything. It's your basic swashbuckler plot, but it's so wonderful to see Tyrone Power and Gene Tierney at their absolute youthful gloriousness. They're gorgeous together, and they had such a nice chemistry together. Tyrone, by this time, was just being cast in one swashbuckler after another, and he was really becoming disheartened because he thought he was being cast because he had a pretty face. He did.
I'm driving for oysters.
He also was being cast because he was such a good actor. Tyrone Power, like Errol Flynn, made it look way too easy, and he was such a good actor.
But the day will come when Englishmen who serve other Englishmen will do so as free men, paid for their work, but keeping title to their spirits and their souls.
He said in a couple of interviews that I read, he said, I sometimes wish I'd been in an automobile accident and had my face disfigured so I'd have to be taken for something else besides being a pretty face. He said, Hollywood offers you all of this stuff, all of this success, but you're never really happy because you're not being artistically successful at the same time. For example, when Tyrone went off to the war, not too long after this movie was made, he came back and Zanuck said, I got a book for you. I got The Razor's Edge, and it's the bestseller, and you're going to be in it with Gene Tierney. And he said, I'll do it, but I'm not going to do it unless you shoot a movie for me. I've been away fighting the war, and I've seen a lot of action, and I've seen a lot of the world, and I want to do Nightmare Alley. It's a gritty story of a carny guy, and I want to do it. And Zanuck said, public doesn't want to see you do that. The public doesn't want to see you. They want you back. They want Tyrone back. That's why. And he said, no, this is the deal. This is the deal. Otherwise, I'm walking. So he got to do Nightmare Alley, and of course, it failed. Zanuck didn't put anything behind it, and Tyrone rode his career out until the mid-50s. But once he was free of 20th Century Fox, he got to experiment. He went back to the theater, which was always his love. He had come out of the theater. His father had been a great actor. He did John Brown's Body, and Charles Laughton directed him. And Charles Laughton directed him in Mr. Roberts in London. And he did a play with Catherine Cornell. He really loved doing the theater. And he would go out and do movies, and he would finance his own movies occasionally. And then he got to do one of the movies that he loved to do the most, which was Billy Wilder's Witness for the Prosecution with Charles Laughton. And, that was such a change of pace for him, and he just adored it. And then they got called back to do another swashbuckler, and By this time, he was 42 and he'd always had some trouble. He was a heavy smoker. He liked to drink. He liked to party. And he had to do these outdoor scenes with George Sanders in the hot sun. And Sanders had never been a good swords person. He wasn't a Basil Rathbone. He was a great villain, but he wasn't a great swords person. And they'd found that out in this movie, Son of Fury. But they had to fight with these huge broadswords in the heat. And Tyrone had a massive heart attack and died. And he was just in his early 40s. This movie also has a romanticism about it. I mean, it's sort of like everybody's ideal of what you thought the South Seas was like, what Hollywood wanted you to think the South Seas was like. You know, beaches and palm trees and Tyrone with his shirt off and gorgeous ships in the distance and Tyrone with his shirt off. And there's all these other things to, you know, distract you, like Tyrone with his shirt off.
That would be foolish, Ben. Why?
But he did these roles just so well, and Sanders was the ultimate.
Shall I tell you why I want that brat of his here? As a gift to you. His presence here will remind you of his mother, the woman Godfrey preferred to you.
He had Urbane down to a science, you know. It was so great that he got the Oscar for All About Eve because he played Addison DeWitt in every role he ever did, you know. Your name is not Yvette Turn, it's Gertrude Slaczynski. What of it? You know, he was always Addison DeWitt, but he was great in it. Tierny was another movie. This was before Laura. It's another movie where they were just building her up. Darryl F. Zanuck once said that Gene Tierney was the most gorgeous person he ever saw in Hollywood. Because she was an unusual beauty. She had a slight overbite, and she was a natural beauty. And he just thought she was gorgeous.
Oh, me?
Yes, that's right.
Elsa Lanchester has a great little part in this movie. She always, you know, had to play eccentric kind of... She would be like that. In this one, she plays a lusty sort of saloon gal who helps him escape, you know. And she's really sexy. It was too bad they didn't use her in more roles like this.
Could I walk with you? To the corner, maybe. I'd like Maggie Martin to see us together.
I love John Cromwell. He directed Caged later. He had a good career. He had a variety of different things. He did Since You Went Away for David Selznick. So he had a feel for romance, and he was a really good actor's director. This movie is pure adventure entertainment. And I think you're going to have a ball watching Tyrone Power, Gene Tierney, George Sanders, Elsa Lanchester in John Cromwell's Son of Fury. Ooh.
Let's all go to the lobby.
It also has Tyrone Power and Gene Tierney at their absolute youthful beautiest. Beautiful youthiest. Young and the restless.
The popcorn can't be beat.